First of all, wow, 1.3 million concurrent players. Lost Ark actually now holds the record for the second highest peak players on Steam, ever. Second only to PUBG at its absolute peak. Now sure, a lot of that is artificially inflated by players waiting in the queue rather than playing the game, but still, that is well over 1 million people wanting to play. Hell, the only time it's dropped below 350k since launch was during server maintenance. A tremendous success then for Smilegate RPG and Amazon, and clearly deserved. But how many players are actually going to stick with it? Is Lost Ark a game set up for long-term success, or is the glass going to shatter once people start to progress and the true nature of the game is revealed? Once people see that, oh, it's an RNG-based grindfest on multiple characters that asks for an obscene amount of time. Or, at least that's what everyone's being saying anyway. Maybe some people are missing the point. Maybe they're missing something. If you've checked any resource online, then you're going to see this. Checklists of what you should do every day and every week. A daily Chaos Dungeon, check. Daily Guardian Raids, check. 3 Una's Tasks, check. Then your Rapport. Then your Adventure Island and the World Boss. Okay, that's dailies. What about weeklies? Guardian Challenge Modes, Abyssal Dungeons, Una Weeklies, Abyss and Legion Raids. Oh, and also the Challenge Abyss dungeon. And don't forget to do all your life skills so that you can craft battle items. That's only a few hours a week. If you cut it down, that's like an hour a day. Oh, and everyone who is knowledgeable about Lost Ark will tell you that's going to feel like it's not enough. Yeah, because if you want to keep up with the big boys, with maybe the streamers who you watch and, they can just play the game for 12 hours a day, if you want that sweet dopamine progress rush, then you need to do all that in alts as well. 1 will help, 2 is a fair balance. So that's only 3 hours a day, no biggie. The game even helps you out with that by giving you 2 free power passes. That's 2 characters straight to 50 and ready to grind. That is what Lost Ark has been described as, especially for us in the MMO scene. We are used to this, though. Our games are meta games, their design is usually complex enough to require theory crafters, and so we end up approaching games like a well-trained army. To swap analogies for a second, the prevailing opinion is that the real meat of Lost Ark is the grind, that it is the daily checklist leading to the gear progression, and that everything else to that is the side salad, the stuff you engage with only when you are done with the good part and have some spare time. And while this is absolutely true, technically, because content is locked behind your character's item level, a few evenings of Lost Ark and trying to have a fresh perspective makes it feel like that's kind of missing the point. And I think this is good news. The endgame content is a lot of fun, and the gearing loop is genuinely captivating, but it is also a humongous grind. It's worth remembering that you can absolutely stop to smell the roses, and that the developers very obviously want you to do that. Here's our thinking. Lost Ark is an astonishingly large game. The map size is just bloody crazy, especially for a modern MMO that has only been out for just over 2 years. There's 91 islands to get tokens from, 13 continents full of quests, hidden stories, collectibles, NPCs to build rapport with, and a whole bunch more. Hell, one of the islands is just the Chicken Island. You go there to kill some chickens, you become a chicken, and you trade in some chicken tokens for upgrade items. It's not hyper engaging. The boss isn't some beautifully designed masterpiece, nor is it hard, but that's almost not the point here. The point here is that it's a novel experience and it's a fun one. And that's what we've noticed. For every bit of content Lost Ark has that will efficiently progress the endgame loop, it has something else that you can do that can give you some progress, but won't be captured in an optimized for efficiency checklist. And that's really what we want to talk about with Lost Ark. That's the big takeaway as you know, me and Matt have been looking at the game. And those things are likely dozens of hours, if not more, on their own. Now, earlier this week, we released my video on FF14 side activities. It was specifically the treasure maps, a little bit of the hunt trains, and how they're just designed to be fun content, but they provide you with a light dusting of rewards so you don't feel like you're wasting your time by doing them. You know, you do them for fun, but at the end, you've actually racked up some of the stuff that you would have wanted anyway. And that just highlights FF14's understanding of giving players just a nice amount of freedom. And Lost Ark actually does have an equivalent that feels almost one-to-one. And it is called The Cube. It's a random dungeon that tests a party of 4 in a few different ways. Kill enemies in time, kill a boss in time, survive a bunch of incoming abilities. All with a stack of random things happening to you. And that ranges from getting extra speed and extra damage output to, actually taking triple the damage when you're hit. Now, it offers you silver crafting items and engravings. No upgrade items, but those things are ultimately all useful. So it's a perfect example then of a piece of content that is novel, that is clearly separate from everything else in the game, and that is just fun to engage with decent rewards. There's also the Tower. That's a single-player challenge that rewards just a whole bunch of different things. Then, of course, there are the timed island spawns, right? The ones the game conveniently highlights for you. Then there's the sheer backlog of side quests, quests on islands, Ignia tokens, Makoko seeds, card collecting, co-op sailing events, and other stuff. Most of which, either directly or otherwise, does contribute towards your character's skill points, stats, or provide some small amount of progress on your gearing track. Everything you do is a nice to have. Maybe not as directly efficient as doing your daily chores and picking up the daily Una tasks that are recommended for speed, but there is a big world to explore, full of surprisingly cute and novel islands to experience. And I mean that. If you stop to pay attention, you actually look past the pretty meh plot and the underwhelming writing, at least in the English localization, then the scenarios you find yourself in are actually kind of cool, right? Like taking an entrance exam to join a delivery company, or like, mentioned before, the whole becoming a chicken while trying to kill a giant golden chicken. That's just neat and new. There's even one thing that proves the devs, while they obviously, and I suppose part of it just being a Korean MMO, they allow for pretty heavy monetization of progress. They're happy to have RNG upgrade failures, and they design these long daily checklists. There's things that show they do understand that people need variety. And this is something that only really lands when you play. But Chaos Dungeons straight up seem really boring initially. Like, you just delete massive waves of enemies with AoE skills with really not much skill or thought required. And that seems like a terrible waste, since Guardian raids and Abyss dungeons prove that this team can design really fun fights. But that's actually when it starts to click. Because when you have done, when you do one after, another Guardian raid or two, and you've just been super focused on reading boss tells and avoiding attacks for like 20 minutes, well, Chaos Dungeon then actually feels like a good stretch of just decompressing, absolutely smashing some shit, and having some fun. So it ends up being this balanced 1-2 punch of gameplay for an evening, and if you actually miss these things for a few days, you actually get a rest bonus for that content. So if you miss 2 dungeons or raids, then the next one will give you double loot. So they've basically designed a less efficient backup for people who miss out. And that means that if you take 5 days away from the game, you only lose 2.5 days worth of materials in terms of progress. Now that means, as to how it feels to play, that the devs have created a game that gives you just that bit more choice. You can do a list of high efficiency chores every single day and treat it like a job, or you can just chill out and explore what the game has to offer. Either way, you will actually make meaningful progress. So basically, I actually think that the massive focus on the gearing cycle and doing that as fast as possible, I think that's a valid way to play the game, especially if you are a streamer or a content creator who's just, already somehow put hundreds of hours in or whatever. But that's not the only way to play. So just be careful that when you're seeing people play this game, loads of them are literally playing it for a job. And that's going to mean you're going to play it in that more efficient way. It's how I would play it if I was mono-gaming it on Twitch for 2 weeks. Absolutely. And I don't begrudge those people at all. But just know that what you see there isn't the only way to play this game. That entire mode and that entire framing of your playtime as just being knocking out these chores, I think that can turn the game into a job. And if you kind of want one of those games where it's almost like you're employed by the game and you just do the same thing every day, then go ahead, you'll have fun. But I just think it's worth highlighting that the developers have put a lot of effort into building a pretty rich and varied world. And even if their story isn't that good, they certainly have a lot of variety and some cool set pieces. And to loop back to the question that the start of this video posed, I think players understanding this is the key to Lost Ark's longevity. There are 2 ways to play. A mad dash to the finish line is one. But the other, intended for a bigger variety of players, is slow and steady progression through years of content and with tons of fun distractions along the way. If we keep the focus on getting to T3 instantly, then I actually think the glass will shatter for too many players, and they'll wonder why they're coming home from school or work to sign into another job instead of a game. So that's the video, really. Given how much the initial rush is all about skipping the story and the quest dialogue, which actually is entirely understandable, by the way, but we figured the developers know that a great MMO isn't just about engagement and grind. It's also about giving players a good experience day in, day out, even on the days they don't log in. And that's why at the last LAO ON, which is like their version of one of those big, Yoshi P letter from the producer things, the game director actually said that releasing too much raid content was a mistake. And the reason why he thought it was a mistake is because it forced players to go too fast. And now, he said, that when they're developing the game in the future, they're going to focus more on the horizontal content. So while Lost Ark has serious Korean grindfest design at its core, that focus from players could mean there's a lot of people who will miss out on what the devs have made, which is a lot of quality game. And if you've watched the most recent LAO ON, it does seem like there's actually quite a lot of quality game yet to come. So there you go. That basically is the word on Lost Ark Endgame as we see it. Look, if you're watching this channel, you're not watching it because you want a guide on how to effectively optimize your Lost Ark gameplay. I think the job of this video is to say, hey, this is very broadly what's here. This is how you can enjoy the game. There is more than just the daily checklist gameplay. So that's that. Let me know then. Have you found any of this to be true in your gameplay experience? I certainly think that as time goes on, the more we're able to stop and smell the roses, see the cool little touches of flair and creativity the devs have put into games, I think the more we enjoy them and appreciate them. And I'm just becoming more and more wary of the whole play a game like a job mindset that I think sometimes can happen because of, how streamers present the game, how people like me present the game. And maybe I'm just being a bit more self-reflective on that as time goes on, maybe thinking that some of those mindsets are actually making games less enjoyable for people. Food for thought. Let me know what you think anyway. And of course, if you'd like to support what we do, you can check out our Patreon where you'll actually get really cool physical loot. February is Bard month. We've got some awesome art. We've got the class card that comes like a little stand thing so it can set up in your desk. And of course, the pin. It's the best way to support our team. And you get cool shit in return. So I'm pretty jazzed by it. All right, the link's down below. And with that, see you next time.